I can honestly tell you that yes, it is possible. It's possible to come back regardless of where you are at postpartum and or after having an injury. I understand square one. Hi, I'm Adrienne with Glow with Adrienne. I'm going to be telling you about my Diastasis Recti story and how I decided to go ahead and create a 6-week pelvic floor healing and core restore course. So I will be making cottage cheese, banana, chocolate chip, and protein muffins. I'm adding all the ingredients and then we are going to pop it into the oven. All right, so as I get started with doing this, so I got pregnant at the age of 38 and I delivered my son at age 39. So at age 39, I had my son. So I also had placenta previa, which essentially means that the placenta, so I had a full coverage, which means that the only way that I was going to be able to safely deliver him was through a C-section. So the placenta, basically it covers the cervix, and I had a full coverage. They caught that in the beginning of my pregnancy, and they were hoping that it was going to move because there is a chance that the placenta can move. However, I did not have that. It stayed like that throughout my entire pregnancy. So we had to plan for the C-section at 36 weeks. We went into the hospital, delivered him at 36 weeks. It was a little bit of a traumatic birth, meaning I did lose a lot of blood. Because of placenta previa, you have a higher risk of bleeding out, and it could risk the lives of the baby and the mom. So there were a lot of doctors in the OR, but long story short, I made it out okay. So I did need a blood transfusion, but all in all, we both came out healthy. So after having him, I knew that I was going to have probably some abdominal separation. Exactly what is a diastasis recti? Or I've also heard it called diastasis recti as well. It essentially means that the abdominal walls, which is not uncommon for postpartum moms to have this, is where the connective tissue in the middle of your abdominals starts to split. So after I had them, I noticed that my abdominals were just kind of hanging there. And not that I had a six-pack before having my son, I wasn't able to really contract or pull my abdominals in. So this was probably about a month or so after having him. I had called a friend of mine who is a PT, and she helped me to restore the gap. So when she came to check me out, I had a 3-finger split in my abdominals, which means that if I was to lay on my stomach, the split was about 3 fingers deep. So with a lot of breath work, she taught me essentially how to close the abdominals. So typically, a lot of times after having your children, most of the time, the doctor's like, oh yeah, you can go back between 6 and 12 weeks postpartum to your normal exercise routine. Well, my friend was like, I'd probably rethink that. So it took me a lot of work to finally be able to, 1, pull my abdominals in, 2, go back to my normal exercise routine, and also to feel like my stomach wasn't paunched out. And a lot of that came down to the breath. And even talking to my OBG, she really didn't give me much options. Her basically her comment was, well, that's just kind of how C-section tummies are going to look. And I wasn't really ready to take that as my answer. Prior to having my son, I was an Ironman athlete. I have done long endurance events such as marathons as well as full Ironmans. And not that I was going to go back to my endurance sports, I was still going to be pretty active, if that meant like running, to lift weights, those kinds of things. So I wasn't ready to accept this as my fate. So I trained under her for a bit less than a year, and I asked her to teach me so I could teach others. So I am now 45 at the time of the recording. I compete to powerlift. I've done a lot of CrossFit, and I've been able to control, one, the breathing, two, I've been able to pull my abdominals in. And even in my 20s, I used to hate showing my abs. I would never, even prior to having children, I always felt uncomfortable showing off my abs because I never felt like they looked toned enough. I had a lot of issues. I had a lot of body issues that I now recognize. And after going through her course, after having children, after having my son, I realized that I now have eyes on me, right? So I am now a example for my children to show up, right? To not be ashamed of their bodies, to not feel insecure. So I knew I had to get my stuff together. So it really inspired me to help other people to really feel strong in the body. It's not about, oh, how heavy can I lift, or, how much of this can I do? It's not necessarily about that. It's about feeling empowered in your own skin. It's about being able to show up for yourself primarily and for others. And because I am a midlife mom, it's really important for me to stay healthy for them. And it's really important that I want to be able to chase them. I want to be able to do jumping jacks with them, jump on a trampoline, and not feel like, one, I'm gonna pee my pants, two, be afraid I might leak, and three, not being able to have the endurance to keep up with them. Now, is this to say that I'm fully cured? No, but it's really important to me to encourage other people to really feel safe and feel at home in their own skin. So on my first power lifting competition, I did pee myself a little bit. And it's not uncommon when you power lift or if you lift a heavy weight to leak, because it is a lot of pressure on your pelvic floor. Now, I didn't leak much. However, I knew that this was something that I needed to dedicate myself to doing on a regular basis. So it got me back into the routine of doing my pelvic floor exercises. And it also encouraged me to create this course and really not only speak from, okay, I've experienced this myself, what else can I do? In the last 2 weeks, I competed on my second competition to power lift, and I did PR my deadlift, so I did reach a personal best on my deadlift. And even though I didn't leak as much the first time on my deadlift, when I competed, I did leak a bit on this second deadlift. Not a lot, but I noticed it. And again, it's not to say that I'm perfect and I'm cured and this is it. It definitely takes a lifelong journey, and I feel a lot more prepared, and I feel capable of being able to compete in pretty much any type of exercise I wish or I desire. And my hope is that regardless of which stage people are coming in at, either you're just starting to work out again or you're a competitive athlete, it's important to know that there are options. It doesn't have to be straight away you have to have surgery to fix this. There are options for you. Hence why I decided to create this course. So the way I have the course formatted is I start you from the beginning, from square one. So regardless of how postpartum or how far postpartum you are, this program is designed to take you from stage 1 to stage 10 plus, because we all have to start from a beginning. And regardless of where your beginning is, it's important to really get the breath down. It's really important to understand the breathing technique in order to, one, pull in your pelvic floor, and then once it becomes habit, then you don't even really have to think about it. So now, before I pull a heavy deadlift or squat a heavy weight, I know I'm able to control my pelvic floor. So in this course, I've taken you from square one to square 10 plus. So I encourage those who are thinking about it to be open about it, and be open from doing maybe the most basic exercises, which is really coming back to your breath. And I get it, especially as impatient as I am. I recall calling my friend crying because I couldn't hold bear pose. And mind you, I've competed in Ironmans. I regularly enjoy CrossFit workouts. I love to lift heavy. So not being able to complete, in my mind, I thought was a simple pose, was very humbling. Injuries I have also sustained that have also brought me back to square one was prior to having children. I had a herniated disc in my L5-S1. So I was not able to even touch my toes at the time. It was the most excruciating pain I have endured. I recall a time where I had injured myself so good on my back that I was army crawling up the stairs because I couldn't put any pressure on my legs. So I understand what it's like from starting from square one and having to start from square one multiple times. So that was first prior to having children. Then I had a C-section, which is very hard. Again, I was 39 having my son, even though I was a quote unquote healthy person, the recovery was rough. Also prior to having children, they found a cyst in my left ovary. So I actually had my left ovary taken out prior to having children. After having my son, I had a hernia, a placental hernia, which means that I had a hernia in my belly button. So I know how it is to start from square one and feel like, oh my gosh, am I ever going to get my body back? Am I ever going to be able to feel strong again? And in my mature age, I can honestly tell you that yes, it is possible. It's possible to come back regardless of where you are at postpartum and or after having an injury. I understand square one. So take the intimidation out of it. So let's take that fear out of it, because you can't really understand something until you actually try it. I will post everything that I just cooked and baked in the notes underneath the video. I will also add everything that I used and the macro breakdown of my protein muffins. If you have questions, please reach out. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.